Hey everyone, we are here at the Kentucky facility for New Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program. And we're in the indoor here, we being Leandra speaking, and then this is Classic. Classic is brand new to our program. He just came in earlier this week. He's a 2018 gelding and he stands just shy of 17 hands. So he is young, he is checking out this new space, and he's a little bit nervous. So even in the cross ties, when I was walking him in, since we have a wash stall that has 3 walls to it, so it's closed in, and it's a little bit dark, so it can be scary to some of them. And he was a little cautious, but we were able to go in pretty quickly. One of the tactics that I used to help him to alleviate some of that anxiety about going in, because he just didn't want to go in at first. So rather than point him right at the scary thing into the wash stall and insist that he go in, I let him look at it from the side. So if you've been watching some of our videos earlier this week or last week, we've been talking a little bit about the horse's brain and how it works and how we can try to understand them a little bit better. So by letting him look at something from the side, I allowed him to get a better visual of it. So horses have eyes on the side of their head, unlike us. So it's a little bit hard sometimes for us to understand them because we want to point them right at it and make them confront their fears head on. But they have a blind spot right in the front of their head. So right here. So if I'm asking him to move straight on towards something that he's already scared of, I'm basically asking him to address something that he has fear about blind, which is really not fair to him. It's not really going to make for the best scenario. Little dirt mustache. And it just is going to take a longer time usually to address those concerns. You might see the same thing happen with jumps. Hey, there's Julian Portfolio Hedge. Portfolio Hedge's profile will be up very soon. You can come in. So you might see people do that when they're trying to introduce a horse to a jump that they're scared of. They try to point them right at it. They don't let them look at it from the side. And then they try to shove them towards it and sometimes will punish them for trying to look at it from a different angle. They need to look at it straight on. And that doesn't really account for how a horse's brain works. You might have a horse who just is very well behaved and is trying to please you. We're lucky they don't just dump us right away. But they might be willing to please and they might tolerate that, but it's really not the best way to help them through it. So you can tell he's checking everything out. He's a little anxious still. He's actually quite brave. So once we were in the wash stall, he wasn't really anxious and he stood very quietly. You might be able to tell we're walking around a little bit. That is also something that we should try to have a little patience for these guys with when they're anxious. So Classic is a really quiet horse with a great disposition. But even now, he's a little bit pushy and he's a little anxious. But that makes sense because he, like every horse, is designed to be a prey animal. So they're not designed to stand straight still when they're scared. They might need to move. If they're anxious, they need to move. That's their instinct. So that's okay. If you try to make them stand still, you're working against their natural instinct and you're just not going to connect with them very well that way. We have to have a little understanding for their behavior so that we can try to help them develop that confidence they need to be able to work through these things. So additionally, one other thing that we can talk about when we're talking about addressing fears and concerns of these horses or any scary object, like I said, it's best if you can let them look at it from the side. You saw I'm a little wild right now. And this is totally uncharacteristic of him, but that just goes to show how their behavior can change when they're just trying to understand their surrounding. But they also, as you can see, have a blind spot underneath their nose. So their eyes are on the side of their head and they have that blind spot in front, but they also are not able to see anything below them. So if you're restricting their head and they can't put their head down, then they have no visual there. He's trying to come right next to me because I'm kind of his herd right now, and he's trying to understand what Portfolio Hedge is doing. You can also see Portfolio Hedge seems totally unfazed by this, which is another great thing about him. So when you see Portfolio Hedge going up on our website, because he's available for adoption, you can see him in his true colors here. He's being very good, even when Classic is really nervous. So let's try to employ some of the things that we were just talking about, and we'll bring Classic over here. You might also see what Classic did earlier. What your horse might do as well if he's nervous is to poop. And one of the reasons they will do that when they're anxious is that for them, when they're pooping, they're losing a little bit of weight, which would help them theoretically to get away better if they're losing some of the extra load, if they are needing to escape a scary situation. So let's go to the mounting block, something that Classic, you might have seen him checking out it earlier. Now there's some new poop right next to it, but we're gonna let him look at it. This is something that he was scared to approach before. And what we did, he says, I'm a little nervous still, was not just stick him straight at it and force him to come forward, but I had him look at it from what he felt was a safe distance. So at the point where he was okay to pass it and didn't show that anxiety, then we just stood and we waited. And so he can see it. It's in his visual field now. Here it is. It's near him. And one of the mistakes people will make is to try to put them too close to the object. If he wants to approach it on his own, that's great. He's smelling the poop right now. Very exciting. But you can see he's sort of shying away from it as he's looking at it from the side even now. So horses cannot focus very well on things up close. It's best to let them see it. And it's great that poop is right near it because he can smell it and see the mounting block in his visual. But because they can't focus on things really close up and they have weaker muscles that control the focusing, that it's best to allow them to look at something from a couple feet away at first if they're scared of it, not to try to shove them right next to it because then it's going to be blurry. Now it's scary and they don't have a clear vision of it at all. And then just let them wait there. You can kind of see what they do so you can understand how they're processing things. But it also will allow that muscle to have a little bit more time to get a good focus on the object so that they can help to understand it. So we're going to keep working on this, but thanks for joining us today, talking about how to approach scary objects the right way, which considers how horses' brains work and how they are built. So thank you again for joining us. We're going to work on making some progress here. This is Classic, and hopefully you'll see more of him very soon. Thanks, everyone.